So we finally made it. Unfortunately, we saw a sign just as we came to the parking lot. Babe, what did it say?
No drones.
No drones allowed. But it's okay, we got the R3. We got the R3. We got the tripod, so we'll do some great pictures. Also, one last thing is that it's raining and it's very dreary. We wanted to get like some of the golden sun, but we'll see what we can do with this. Not the best conditions, but here we go. What I'm looking for right now is the perfect composition. What I'm looking for right now is just somewhere I can set the tripod up and get the shot. I'm looking for the shot. I can't fly my drone, unfortunately. So I want to set up my tripod and the R3 and do 3 bracketed shots. 1 perfect exposure, 1 underexposed, 1 overexposed, and then merge them. The unfortunate thing is that the sky right now, there's not much character. It's gray, it's overcast. But we will try to get the shot. And babe, I think it could be right here. But look, babe, look. Could that be it? Because I like those peaks over there. That's like, yeah. I think that's the one. Yeah. I'm gonna set this stuff up and I think this is the shot right here. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode. It is Jamil with MILMID Studios. Today I want to edit a photo with you that I got from Moraine Lake. It is a glacially fed lake in Banff National Park, according to the Google. It's a beautiful location. We had to wait when we got to the location because there's a 14-kilometer road that takes you up to this beautiful scenery. You can do it as a hike or you can actually drive up. We decided to drive. It is super busy. This is one of the most beautiful places in the world. We had rain, unfortunately, where there's overcast, as you can see here. On the left side of my screen here, you can see some of my presets that I'm making. These are all just being tweaked and developed. But for example, we're going to merge and stack some pictures here, but I want you to see what Moraine Overcast 02 does to that picture just with one click. So we're working on these presets, and hopefully we'll be able to distribute them to anyone who is interested, and you can support the channel. Let's get right into it, guys. Today what we are going to do is merge these 3 pictures, 66, 67, 68, into one. I took this picture here, perfectly exposed, at 6 seconds, f11, ISO 100, using the RF15-35 f2.8. The 67 picture was underexposed by 1 stop. 68 is overexposed by 1 stop. So this is how we're going to merge the pictures, and then we're going to edit that one picture with all the data from these 3 images. So I'm going to click on this, hold down shift, have these 3 here. We are going to photo merge, HDR, and right now it's creating the HDR preview. So here's the preview of all 3 images, and they ask you in terms of deghosting, and just so I'm not confusing anyone. I am not a professional, but I'm just showing you guys kind of my workflow and how, you know, how my eye works when it comes to editing. So de-ghosting in Lightroom, according to the Googles, ghosting results from objects moving in frame from shot to shot when you're shooting a bracketed sequence. So essentially, the only thing that's really going to be changing, I guess the water will be moving, but also the sky. The clouds do not stay the same in the time that I took the 3 shots. So if you don't want any de-ghosting, you just click none. But look, none to high. Check out the sky. Building a preview for us. So there are different characteristics in the sky. You know, in some, when you do some brackets and some stacks, it's not as noticeable. In this case, guys, I'm going to just say, honestly, the one that looks most appealing to me is going to be the low or none. So I'm just going to say low. We're going to merge these photos. So as you can see on the top here, creating HDR, and this picture right here, it creates its own. It's number 69, and what 69 is a mixture of these 3 bracketed photos. Again, perfectly exposed, underexposed, overexposed by 1 stop. So this image right here that you see on the screen are those 3 merged images. Let's get right into editing, guys. And we're going to kind of go by air. So the first thing that I like to do is look at the temperature. I kind of like, the way that my brain works, I like to go top to bottom as best as I can. Now, these are all changed here, but that's automatically done. I'm going to click on reset. Okay. So we're going reset. We're going to do it. We're doing everything on our own. Okay. So we're going to actually, I kind of do like the temperature the way that it is. If later on we need to change it, we will. But exposure wise, I'm going to bring this up 1 stop. Let's see. 1 stop might be a little too much. Let's see here. If we just type it in. You know what? We're going to go with 1 stop. Contrast. We're just going to tweak contrast up to 10. I think 10 looks good. We're not going to max anything out. Highlights, I always typically like to drop them. And as you can see, when I drop the highlights, you get more characteristics in the sky. So I really like that. You bring out the sky on a cloudy, overcast day. It's not, you don't get the greatest pictures, but I think this is beautiful. And let's see how we can kind of recover it from shadows. What you can see when I did lift the shadows, look at the trees, for example. You do get a lot more data out of the trees. And this Canon R3, the stack sensor, is just great at retaining so much information. So we're brightening this picture up. The whites, I think I'll keep the same. Yeah, we'll keep that the same. Blacks, just to give it a bit more drama, we'll bring the blacks down. I'll say 25. There we go. Now, I typically play around with clarity and texture. In landscapes, I may change how I do this, but for now, I do like bringing up the clarity and bringing up the texture. Just a smidge. So 10 for the texture, 15 for the clarity. And in terms of dehaze, we're going to keep dehaze at 0. We're going to bring up some vibrance here to 10. We're not going to do anything crazy like, no. I mean, some may like that. It's a little colorful for me. But we'll have this at 40, 39, since it's, giving me a hard time. Let's see if we can drop down we'll drop down the vibrance to 10. Okay, so I'm happy with that. That's a good place to work at. The colors are really nice, and it is brighter. It's a brighter picture. We're going to go to the tone curve, and we're going to drop 3 anchor points. Okay, now we could matte this picture, but no. I'm going to keep it nice and sharp, and we're just going to see what happens here. You know what? We're not going to deviate too far, but just slight tweaks like that right there. Right there, and we're going to just bring this guy along the top. I want to make it nice and even. This might be really slight. So not much change in the tone curve. We're not trying to make it too crazy. We'll change some of these colors just to what's appealing. And to you, you know, what is appealing to me may be completely different to what's appealing to you. So this is just kind of how I like to tweak things. You know, you change the dial back and forth. You increase or decrease the luminance and saturation, and just kind of go with what works for you. So you don't want to do too much, because you see that, you really see that separation. It's just not natural. So it's tempting to really overdose on the dials, but sometimes the greatest thing you can do are small adjustments just to what's appealing to your eye. The water, this will really bring out the water. We'll bring the luminance up to about 45. Saturation for blues, you know, I kind of want to keep the same. We'll bring down the hue to -5. We'll keep the purple and magenta where it is. Next up for color grading. Now, this is fun. We're not going to go too crazy. I typically find that a nice shade is the blues and the cyan. So we're going to go right there for blue. For highlights, we're going to keep it orange to yellow, really slight. And then for the highlights here, we're going to keep it mild. Come on. I'm just using one hand. That's why I'm not using like the shift. If you do shift, then you can adjust how much you want and not change the actual color that you've selected. If you hit Control, it does the opposite. You can change the color, but the amount that you've selected is locked in. So shift and Control. Okay, so this right here is appealing to me. I like that. And then you can kind of just adjust these as you see fit. Blending, we'll keep that zeroed out, and we'll come a little bit more to the blue side. So we'll go +30. +30. Okay, so we're looking pretty good so far. For global adjustments, honestly, guys, I would probably leave it alone for the sake of just, you know, changing the dial. You know, you can decide what looks best to you. You know what I'm saying? Do you want it a little bit warmer for global? I personally I like to stay around here for the shadows and the highlights and the global adjustment. It really depends, but for me in this picture, this is what I like right here. We're going to go to detail now. You zoom in. I don't see any need to increase the noise reduction. Sharpening, you know, for the sake of sharpness, I will move it up 10 to 50. The color dial is fine the way it is. We're going to lens correction. Everything here is good for me. It shows me when you click on profile, it already has done, it's removed chromatic aberration if there was any, and enables profile correction. Without that, you see how the distortion comes up. But now this program is so smart, it takes the lens into consideration and its, you know, characteristics, and it adjusts to make the picture as accurate to reality as it can. Transform, we're not touching that. Effects, now I'll add a little bit of vignetting, just slight, just -12. That's all I'm changing here. I'm not adding any grain. Calibration, this is, I've recently started using this. In this case, we're starting down in the blue, but I don't change the hue typically. If we do, it's going to be slight. So saturation, like I like this dial a lot. This does a lot for me. So we're going to go to 35 for saturation. The hue, let's see what happens when we drop the hue. So maxing it out, it's obviously not natural on either end, But if you do a slight, I like, let's say minus 10. I like that. Saturation for the green primary, if we increase it all the way, that actually looks quite nice. If you decrease it, it kind of deadens the photo, flattens it out. So we're going to keep it all things even. We're going to keep it at 35. I like that a lot. And then the hue, that actually looks, no, it's too red on the sand there. Either way, so that's if you max it either way. But slight adjustments, I think that's the lesson. We're going to go to plus 5. And then for the red primary, I think we'll keep it at plus 5. And we'll leave everything else the same. I'm really liking the look. Now, what I do after I like the general overview of the photo is I will start tweaking individual aspects of the photo. So for the sky is typically where I'd like to start when it comes to masking. So I have the sky here. We're going to drop the highlights. Now you can make the sky really dramatic, but we're not doing that because it doesn't look very natural just by decreasing the exposure. But we will, should we raise it? We'll raise it to 0.42. Contrast, minus 15. Shadows, you can lift the shadows a little bit, give it a little bit of brightness. Whites, we'll drop the whites just a bit to minus 10. Blacks we'll keep the same. Clarity, you can actually see how it did that to the clouds with clarity. Once you max it out, it really makes the clouds pretty distinct. We're going to leave the clarity as it is. Texture, it can make the clouds look very soft or very hard. In this case, I think we will bring it up to plus 15. Dehaze, when you max it out, just not very pretty. And if you go all the way on the other end, you pretty much white everything out, which is definitely not desirable. In this case, for a dramatic effect, I'm going to bring up the sky to 25. And then you can change the hue. But again, we want what's pretty natural for this sort of landscape photo. So if I'm going to do anything, it'll be a very slight adjustment over to the blue kind of purple. 13.6, we'll drop it just a little bit to 11.5. We'll go with that. Saturation, I think it's fine at 0. Perfect. So the sky, I think for a cloudy day, that's probably the best we can do for the sky. I'm going to pick a radial dial for this tree right here. We're going to increase the clarity. Okay, increase a little bit of the exposure and open up the shadows just a little bit. We're going to use another radial dial. I love the radial dial. You get a lot of space and you can change how it feathers as well. With this dial right here, we'll keep it at 41 though. And what we can do, if the radial dial doesn't cover everything, you could just press add. You could use either brush, linear, another radial dial. I'll use brush here and I will fill in the spots as you can see here. And what we're going to do now, everything's generally filled in. I'm going to bring up the clarity. I'm going to drop the shadows. And that's all I'm going to do for the rocks. Maybe some texture. Plus 10 texture. Okay, just a few more things here. Okay, likewise, if you are using a radial dial, because it does cover a big area, if you don't want these, and I mean, obviously this is a quicker, preview of what I do. If you don't want these kind of taken up, then you can subtract and you can brush those away. You can make the brush smaller too, just to give you an idea of some of the tools you can use to make things a lot more precise. So we'll go with that. And then again, for the mountains and stones and rocks, I really do like to bring up the clarity and the texture. And I might even cool this down a little bit, just a touch. what we'll do now, we'll add over here a little bit more over here. We'll go with that right there, guys. And the final thing I'm going to do for this photo before we end this video is touch up on the water, which is a big part of this photo. It's beautiful. We'll keep that there, and then we will add our brush to fill in the holes. Just like this. It's not going to be perfect today, but if you are doing some client work or you're making a photo that you want to print, you will take a lot more time on this to make it as accurate and as precise as possible. So I think that's good. So what we're going to do here, I do like that clarity dial, guys. So look what this does. Bring up the clarity, it makes it more glassy. I like that a lot. We won't OD. We'll go to 60. We'll see what happens when we touch the, if it wants to, there we go, the texture dial. So we're there. We won't max out either, but you can make it really soft, or in this case, I'm going to 30. I'm going to also bring up the exposure. That's good, 0.46. Highlights, in this case, I usually don't ever raise my highlights, but in this case, I'll raise the highlights to 20. Shadows, we can lift some shadows to 10. Whites, go to 15. Blacks, we'll just drop to -5. There we go. To me, guys, that is a solid picture. I like that a lot. Let me know what you think in the comments. I will put the pictures up side by side, or matter of fact, I won't put them side by side, but I will put the pictures up one after the other, and you tell me if you guys enjoy this sort of editing. I hope you did learn something. You get to see exactly, what kind of goes through my mind when I'm editing a picture. I am not a landscape photographer. This is it's an aspect of photography that I'm really getting into. I really enjoy. So this is a learning process for me as well. And I look at a lot of great YouTubers that I've learned quite a bit from. So that's what it's all about, learning from one another. And I really do hope that you guys got something from this video. Thanks so much for tuning in. And you know what, guys, follow me on Instagram at MILMID Studios. Tag me in some of your photos. I would love to see the work that you guys are putting out. Thank you so much for the support. We will see you in the next one. But at the end of the day, guys, don't forget to keep on shooting.